It's time for me to explain some basics of bullet caliber and ballistics. The numbers that you see describing a caliber are the diameter of the bullet. Usually it's in metric or imperial. You can see either 45 ACP if it's a point number, then that's how big of an inch it is. This is almost half an inch, 0.45 of an inch. And this is 7.62. It is obviously not 7.62 inches, and that is millimeters. Now the reason I'm talking about this specifically is because of some Warhammer 40k stuff. People see 75 caliber bolters and they think that that's super good because 0.75 is a big number. It's bigger than 0.5. But again, this is 45 ACP. It is a pistol round. It's 0.45, almost half an inch. This is 375 H&H Magnum. It is an elephant gun round. Which one do you think hits harder, even though 0.45 is a bigger number than 0.375? It's this one. This one hits harder. This one hits harder. It's a longer case, and generally the case length is pretty indicative of how much gunpowder there is, which is how forceful the bullet shoots out is. And sometimes you'll have a 9x19, two numbers, and that is indicative of the case length. This is 9mm by 19mm, and it's not the overall length. That would be different. It's just the size of the case, which again is indicative of the gunpowder charge. You don't do the overall length because sometimes those can be a little different. These are both 9mm rounds. You can see the case there, but one is a little bit longer than the other, and that's purely the projectile. Another factor that goes into it is if it's a bottlenecked round versus a straight wall. Bottlenecking pretty much produces a hydraulic effect. It's got a big explosion-y thing down here, and that's forced into a smaller space, which increases the velocity here. Bottlenecked rounds usually shoot bullets pretty darn fast, faster than straight-walled ones. And that kind of gets into the two big numbers that a lot of people use to figure out how powerful a bullet is, and that's velocity and bullet weight. Those two combined. I could have made a cool transition. And the product of that math is the kinetic energy of the projectile, which is how hard something hits. The equation favors velocity more, but these two calibers both hit with about the same kinetic energy. This one gets there through speed, this one gets there through bullet weight. I don't remember if I said that already. And a lot of people use that kinetic energy number as like the big indicator, but it's far more complicated than that. People have put out numerous theories. People who hunted for a living, people who were military shooty people for a living, have debated what equation goes into how powerful a bullet is, but breaking all of those down would be another video. Now, to wheel it over to Warhammer 40k, a lot of people say that a bolter, which is historically 75 caliber, they say that's 19mm, which it is, and 19 is close to 20, so the bolter must hit about as hard as a 20mm autocannon. But canonically, bolt rounds are 19x46, generally pretty small. People comparing the almost 20mm bolter are similar to people comparing 45 ACP to 458 Winchester Magnum. One is significantly better, even though the bullets themselves have a similar diameter. I don't know if the people who need to see this video will see it, but at least now you will know if you see one of these comments. I don't even know if I'm gonna edit this video. I don't know. Whatever. If I'm not gonna edit it, I'm at almost 6 minutes already, so it'd only be talking for 2 more minutes to get it to that 8-minute mark to have good monetization on YouTube. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the other numbers involved. I'll still do a more dedicated video. Sectional density is another number that some of these formulas use to figure out how powerful a weapon is, and that is essentially the diameter of a bullet combined with the mass of the bullet. So you're talking about how big of a surface area it is and how heavy the bullet is, which is a pretty good addition to the whole how powerful something is equation, because the weight is pretty indicative of energy And the surface area, that's like how big the hole is going into the person, or I don't know, animal. People are animals. Yeah, so that's pretty important as well. And another formula to break all of this ballistic, how powerful it is down, also considers the type of bullet. This is a flat-nosed bullet with a full metal jacket. It would not do as much because when this thing hits the body, it's not really going to do too much. It's just going to keep its shape and then go right through or stop inside of somebody. Meanwhile, this hollow point round is going to mushroom out when it hits something. Excuse me. Maybe I should edit this? I don't know. This is going to mushroom out when it does hit something, so that's going to expand that surface area, so this, in that equation, would have a higher value. Now, this is a relatively new bullet type. It essentially, let's focus there, it essentially, think of it like hydraulically, tissue, it goes in this relatively wide end, and then it's funneled out down here, kind of pushing it out. So it creates a bigger wound channel than a bullet this size would generally do. So that equation doesn't consider this type of round because this did not exist back then. And then you have dum-dum rounds, which is, there's a train, which is the slang name for soft nose, which this has lead up here and a partial metal jacket. And what that does is the metal jacket stabilizes it inside of the gun barrel so it's accurate, but the exposed lead, that kind of mushrooms out and pushes out a little bit, not as much as a dedicated hollow point, but it still expands the overall diameter a bit. I've mainly seen these used in areas where hollow points are illegal for hunting, but these aren't. And technically, these and hollow points would be considered a war crime. And they're also named dum-dum rounds because of the arsenal in India where they were made. Now, that does sound kind of funny, but I'm pretty sure some English words sound funny in India. I don't know. I'm at 9 minutes. I'll just end this here. Probably gonna label this rambling about calibers or something. And I hope you're doing okay.